Hey, guess what? You're about to witness the most humiliating defeat ever suffered by a hare. This story will make you laugh, it will make you cry, but mostly it will make you say, "No freaking way." So get ready and let's begin. Once upon a time in a lush and vibrant forest, there lived a super cool tortoise named Tony. Now, Tony wasn't your average tortoise. He was known throughout the forest for his chill vibes and his ability to stay calm in any situation. But what really set him apart was his trusty skateboard. Tony was the only tortoise in the forest who could shred like nobody's business. And he spent most of his days cruising around, doing tricks and hanging out with his animal friends. One sunny afternoon, Tony was skating through the forest when he suddenly spotted a hare. This was no ordinary hare. It was Hare, the fastest runner in the whole wide forest. Harold was known for his lightning-fast speed and his cocky attitude, and he was always eager to show off by challenging anyone who dared to question his title as the fastest one around. As Tony approached Harold, he couldn't help but notice the hare's arrogant smirk. "What's up, slowpoke?" Harold said with a sneer. "Can't believe how slow you are. If we had a race, you wouldn't even come close to winning." Tony just ignored him at first, figuring that Harold was just being his usual annoying self. But then something unexpected happened. Tony actually took Harold up on his challenge. "You're on," he replied with a mischievous grin. "Let's have a race right now." Harold's eyes widened in surprise. He couldn't believe that someone would actually dare to challenge him. But he quickly recovered and said, "All right, let's do it." The other animals in the forest were shocked. They couldn't believe that Tony had actually taken Harold up on his challenge. Everyone knew that Harold was the fastest runner in the forest, and they thought that Tony had lost his mind. But Tony was determined to prove them wrong. And so the race began. Harold shot off like a rocket, leaving Tony in the dust. As the other animals watched, they couldn't help but feel sorry for Tony. It was clear that he was no match for Harold, and they knew that he was doomed to lose. Meanwhile, Harold was loving every second of it. He was running at full speed, and he could feel the wind whipping through his fur as he sped along the path. He glanced back and saw that Tony was nowhere in sight. In fact, Harold couldn't even hear Tony's breathing. He was so far behind. "I'm gonna win," Harold said to himself with a smug grin. But little did he know that Tony had a secret plan. While Harold was focused on winning the race, Tony was taking his time. He didn't try to run faster or cut corners. He simply put one foot in front of the other and kept moving forward. And then something amazing happened. As Harold was running, he heard a rustle in the bushes. He slowed down to take a peek and saw a juicy carrot. Harold couldn't resist. He had a big craving for carrots, and he couldn't bear the thought of not having one. So he veered off course and hopped over the bushes to grab the carrot. When Harold returned to the path, he realized that he had lost sight of Tony. "Where is that slowpoke?" he asked himself. Just then, he heard a familiar voice. "Need a lift, Harold?" Tony called out as he cruised past Harold on his skateboard. "What the heck?" Harold exclaimed. He couldn't believe that Tony had passed him while he was on a skateboard. Harold was furious. He wanted to win the race and show off to all the other animals. But as he looked back at the finish line, he saw that Tony was already close to winning. Harold knew that if he didn't do something drastic, he would lose. And so he did the unthinkable. Harold took off his shoes and socks and tied them together to make a makeshift whip. Then he started whipping himself, urging himself to run faster. "Come on, Harold, you can do it," he said to himself. But despite his efforts, Tony was still gaining on him. Harold was exhausted and his legs were heavy, but he knew that he couldn't give up. He had to keep going if he wanted to win the race. Then all of a sudden, Harold felt a sharp pain in his foot. He had stepped on a thorn and it had pricked him. Harold tried to ignore the pain, but it was too much. He had to sit down and rest. As Harold sat on the ground, he watched as Tony approached the finish line. The other animals cheered and celebrated as Tony won the race. Harold was humiliated. He had lost to a tortoise. But then something unexpected happened. As Harold sat there feeling sorry for himself, he heard a voice. "Well done, Tony," said the voice. Harold looked up and saw a majestic eagle. "You have shown great determination and perseverance. No matter how slow you may be, what matters most is that you never give up." Harold was stunned. He couldn't believe that an eagle had taken the time to congratulate Tony. But then the eagle flew away, leaving Harold with a lot to think about. From that day on, Harold never challenged Tony to a race again. In fact, he became friends with Tony and learned a valuable lesson about humility and the importance of never giving up. Meanwhile, Tony continued to cruise around the forest, always ready for a new adventure. He never forgot the day he beat Harold in the race, and he often reminisced about it with a smile on his face. After all, it was one of the most epic moments in forest history. So remember, my friends, no matter how slow you may be, what matters most is that you never give up. With a little determination and a lot of heart, you can achieve anything you set your mind to. Just like Tony, the skateboarding tortoise who proved that slow and steady really does win the race. This fable teaches us that it's not our speed or strength that matters most, but our determination and perseverance. Slow and steady wins the race. Whether you're facing a big challenge or just trying to reach your goals, remember to stay focused and don't give up. The tortoise in this story is a great example of someone who didn't let their limitations hold them back. Even though he was slower than the other animals, he never gave up and he ended up winning the race. So next time you're feeling discouraged, remember the tortoise and the hare. Stay focused on your goals and don't give up. Now it's time for you to share your thoughts. What's your favorite part of the story? Let us know in the comments below. We also want to hear any life lessons you've learned from this story. Remember to hit that like button if you enjoyed our retelling of this classic tale. And if you haven't already, subscribe so you never miss out on our amazing stories. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.